one, I suppose, and give this camera just a second to click in. And I guess that's good enough. Okay, hi guys. Welcome back for our Thursday Live. My name is Christopher, and this is the Dinosaur Omelette. That's our small hatchery. I'll give a second for anybody else who wants to show up in here. So, hi, if you guys are new, if you haven't been here before, my wife Angela, she's not here today, everybody else. She's usually with me when we do our lives, but she had some errands to run, so she's not going to be in tonight. This evening, we're going to be talking about back to Quail basics, like Quail 101, the stuff you should know before getting started, or maybe even doing it for a while and you have questions or there's some issues. So if you guys have any questions, pop them down in the comments, and I will be sure to help you out. Now, I'm sweating to death because I just came in from outside and it started pouring, so hopefully I don't lose my broadcast here because of the internet and electricity. So a little bit about us for you guys who are new, have not seen us before. We are the Dinosaur Omelette. That's the name of our little hatchery. We're a small hatchery in southern Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and it's very, very beautiful where we live. I'll post a video once in a while of some of our outdoor excursions. We have mountains and waters in a lot of pretty places. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because one of the, I think, tenets of wanting to be a homesteader or having your own little farm is the satisfaction of doing that endeavor, the quality of life. All right, living on the farm. Even though it's a lot of hard work, it certainly comes with the quality of life. And where we are, where we live, and where I encourage people to go outdoors to increase the quality of one's life and be at peace and be in nature for a while. But anyway, we are a small hatchery in southern Lancaster County, and we focus on raising and teaching people about the jumbo Coturnix quail. Why? Why are we so, I guess, passionate, you could say, for sure, about these little critters? Because they are magnificent food producers. They produce a wonderful abundance of food relatively easily. You don't need a lot of education. In fact, I always plug this thing. It's free. It's not, you don't need to email or sign up for anything. It's just, I have a link in our video description for how to raise these quail because they are so simple. Free education. The deal is nobody has time today. Your time is valuable. You don't want to be spending 50 hours trying to learn about something when you got kids, work, house, chores, car, all these other stuff. On top of that, doing the homestead stuff. And getting into a new endeavor is, intimidating. It's a big learning curve. So we wanted to cut the learning curve down. So we definitely put together a very helpful 25-question Q&A that you'll find down in the description, which I highly recommend, plus some other stuff that we wrote. But yeah, man, if you read this, it'll basically give you all the information you need as a layperson with zero experience to grab yourself a quail, a few quail, whatever you want to do, and start raising them. Okay, so I think that's about enough of the intro to all of our good stuff. Now, before I go into the meat of this talk, my favorite thing about these quail are the eggs. Yeah, these eggs, they lay a bunch of eggs. So a hen will lay approximately 300 eggs annually, every year. So one hen's laying 300 eggs. Well, and people, so the big, what do you say, mental block, or I don't want to get in, I don't want these birds because the eggs are small. They don't like the size of the eggs. So the deal is these quail eggs, three of them is equivalent to one large chicken egg. So three little quail eggs equivalent to one large chicken egg. Yes, they're smaller. Of course they're smaller. The quail are smaller. The quail require less housing and less space. It's a trade-off. They produce smaller eggs. However, we're going to employ some mathematics. Again, down in the description, I have a link about that on how to, compute the amount of quail you're going to want for the amount of eggs you want to produce relative to the amount of chicken eggs you consume on a regular basis. And I always like to use the number 6 because it's pretty easy. So if my kids, me, whoever is eating 6 eggs a day or whatever the quantity of times is, 6 eggs, 6 chicken eggs, and I want to replace it with quail, I'm going to want 1, 2, 3 quail per 1 chicken egg I'm replacing because 3 eggs equal 1 regular chicken egg. So three quail hens to replace 6 eggs. 3 times 6, very simple, 18. So I would want a hutch of about 18 to 20 hens, and they're going to lay rather consistency, 1 a day or so. You're going to miss a day here or there, but generally you could expect about 1 or so eggs a day from your hens, and they're very, very prolific layers. So I always love to encourage people to investigate them. They're not popular in the United States because this is Kentucky Fried Chicken land. We got fried chicken everywhere. You go into what's the place called? The Walmart, man. They got, the fried chickens there. We don't see quail, and I understand that. The poultry industry is well established. It's profitable as it is. And those huge businesses, the way they function is they have a very, very slim margin, and they have to be very fluid and operate very quickly, and they're turning product over regularly. But as homeowners or homesteaders or little farmetters, whatever we're doing, we don't have to abide by those rules. Okay, we are functioning per our own goals, and again, like I said at the beginning of this thing, our own quality of life, the satisfaction we're getting. So we don't have to adhere to the fast rules of big agra that they follow to produce all of their foods for distribution nationally or whatever regionally. Okay, so we're going to be producing for home. Oh, guys, you may have noticed a horse head in the back. So that horse head is always there. That's actually it's a sculpture Angela did. She's actually a very good artist. She did it in high school many years ago. But yeah, she does art as well. What was I yapping about? Oh, chicken production, quail at the homestead. And now we are going to move into this because now we have an idea. We've been learning about quail. I talked to my neighbor. He has some. I've been watching these people on the YouTube. They have quail. And man, I'm thinking of getting some myself. This sounds pretty cool. Can I really do that? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. And you will be successful with these birds. Okay? So where are the quail from? What are they? So we have domesticated quail, the japonica, the Coturnix quail. Okay, there's varieties of quail, and there's generally 2 family of quail: Old World quail, people will tell you, and New World quail. Just like Columbus in the Old World, Europe and Asia, and New World over here in North America, and that's exactly what they're referring to. The Old World quail come from Asia and Europe, okay? And particularly the Coturnix quail that is so popular, the one that we raise. And over here, the New World quail are things like California quail and the bobwhite, things that are indigenous to the New World. Very simple, okay? People have been raising them for many, many centuries, really. And they are starting to quickly gain popularity here in the United States. All right, things I'm going to go over. So I write these little outlines so I can be thorough with you guys, yet not out too rambling about different things. I think the first thing to talk about is housing and enclosures in respect to your goals. And I always like to talk about goals. And if we refer back to that 6 number, I want 18 quail to replace my 6 chicken eggs. Right? So I'm getting 18 to 20 quail. So let's go with this number. My goal is to get these eggs replaced, and I want to raise quail. So enclosures, hutches. The quail, what's magnificent about these guys, well, there's a bunch of things. I'll name them all before I get into this. 1, they take very little space. You can raise them in a hutch. 1 foot. And everybody argues about this in the world of quail, but we generally go by one square foot will house up to 3 quail. Okay, so a 4 foot by 3 foot hutch. What is that? 4 times 3 is 12 times 3. Is that right? I'm losing my head. Anyway, 1 square foot will satisfy 3 quail. So you're figuring out what kind of hutch size you need. If you're going to have 50 quail, you're not putting them in a 2 by 2, 4 square feet. That'll satisfy 3, 6, 9. That'll give you 12 quail. You're going to figure out your square footage that you're going to need for your quail. And that's a good rule of thumb. And again, it's in this little pamphlet. All this stuff is. But these are the major important things. So your housing enclosures, their square footage is important. The other thing to know about the quail is that they respirate, they breathe a lot, they have a high metabolism, and they're a little warmer. So they want plenty of ventilation. When we build hutches, when I build a hutch, it's very thoroughly ventilated. You have ventilation on the front, side, back, top, and I may have one portion of our hutch will remain enclosed, but the majority of it is open to plenty of airflow, because these birds do breathe a lot and they produce a lot of moisture when they breathe, just like a human being in the wintertime. You breathe out, you see the white, the condensation, that's moisture, and every time we respirate, we're losing moisture. When we talk, you get a dry mouth, you're losing moisture. Same with a little quail, except they're always going super fast. They breathe fast and they're warm, so they need that ventilation. So it's important to have the ventilation. I wouldn't recommend taking an old chicken coop, for example, that's all sealed with maybe a little strip, and trying to put the quail in there. If it's not properly ventilated, they're going to overheat, and they could be susceptible to respiratory illness because of the enclosed environment and the lack of airflow. Okay. With your hutches, okay, the main problem, I think, the main issue with quail, because they're enclosed in a hutch, they're not really going to be catching illnesses. But the thing they have to watch out for is predators, predator proofing. You get predators. In fact, we had a nice little local raccoon visiting last night, trying to get into the cage and munch down on our quail, which was not good. I saw they got into a couple eggs I forgot to get in. So the housing needs to be predator proof. So how do you predator proof your quail hutch? All right. It's going to be all sealed up. Really, generally, as a rule, you don't want to have any openings larger than a quarter, and in fact, probably smaller than that. People want to build their hutches with chicken wire. Do not do that. Do not, if you're going to be outside anyway. If you're totally enclosed in an indoor location, like a garage or some kind of a warehouse, and no critters are getting in, maybe that's okay, but rats still get in. But yeah, you do not want to use a large wire like the chicken wire outside, because rats can get in there, weasels can reach their hands in there, and they're very easy to reach quail, and they'll all get eaten up. So predator proofing your cage, we always recommend to use what's called hardware cloth. It's a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch screen, wire meshing, wire screen, that we really wrap the entire hutch with it, except for their little enclosed area where we have a sand bath. Otherwise, the whole thing's ventilated and open with that 1/2 inch hardware cloth. But the beautiful thing is, it doesn't just provide ventilation, it allows no predators to get in. We've had these birds for 4 years and have not had one single predator get in and attack any of the hundreds of birds. Not one. They've all been safe. I've heard people talk about their quail getting their feet munched from below. Now, that is possible even through the hardware cloth. So what we always recommend, and I have a hutch video here, and if you really want to go watch it, there's other hutch videos online. But let's say this is the floor of the hutch. Quails are walking. The droppings pan should be sufficiently close enough that animals aren't going to be getting underneath in between the pan and the floor. So you don't want to have your droppings pan way down below where the animals can get underneath and rip off the little feet. You want to have it nice and close where you can slide it out, and none of those guys are coming in to eat critters at night, okay? But like I said, we've never had a problem with predators. Read this little booklet. It's all in there. It'll tell you that. And I don't think we ever will have a predators. We have had predators many times crawling all over the things. We have night vision cameras, right? And they go off, and I see the squirrels. Well, not the squirrels. I see the raccoons, the possums, and all the critters having a fun party out there, but they're not getting in, okay? They're trying to, which they're animals. And the times of year where it's most prevalent, springtime, babies are born, right? Wintertime, there's no more food. So the wild animals' behavior and movement, their patterns change, and they're going to be looking all over for your critters to eat them up. Chickens, rabbits, quail. So keep them predator proof. So housing, they're very simple, small hutches, okay? Ventilation, predator proof, and you want to make sure you have shielding from the element rains, or the rain and direct sunlight. You don't want them baking. You don't want anybody baking. These are ground birds, right? So they're used to scurrying around and hiding in the grass. And I do provide for them sand bath and a little hidey hole where they kind of in and out. And there's some stimulation. You can put stuff in there to keep them stimulated. But housing is important. These considerations are important beforehand before you go get your critters, so you know what you're doing and you don't want to fail. You want to plan everything properly before you get started with anything. And with quail, like I said, they're very, very simple, but it takes a simple amount of education to learn beforehand before you start. And so and if you guys have questions, again, while I'm yapping here, because it's just me and there's no Angela tonight, stick them in the bottom. It'll give me something to answer. Anything else about housing and enclosures? I mean, just consider feed loss. Okay, losing feed. When feed goes down to the ground, that's attracting rats and other predators. And your watering system, how you're going to water them. You don't want to have to be cleaning out waters all the time, depending on the number of quail you have. We have gravity-fed buckets. Put a bucket up in the air, run a tube down, 5-gallon bucket, and that keeps them hydrated. And I don't fill that bucket up except for like every other day, maybe every 3 days. If it's really super hot, maybe once a day. They're going to guzzle down a lot of water, but that's natural, and it's not a difficulty. Like I said, we produce a ton of food just from the quail, from the eggs and their meat. But they produce so many eggs. I just pickled a bunch a couple days ago, and I took all the eggshells, and we take the eggshells and we smash them up, and they go into either the compost or this time I just throw them right into the garden. I'll shred them up real fine and toss them out into the garden. It's good for everybody, the plants and the microorganisms in the soil. And we did a sort of permaculture food layering live video a couple weeks ago where we discussed some of these techniques. You want to reuse, you don't be throwing things away if you can. I think one of the skills in the whole homesteading community is learning how to avoid waste. So you're producing, and your trash isn't really trash. It has other uses, and it trickles down. You're using it over and over and over again. Quail droppings, put in the compost pile. It's hot, so you got to let it sit and break down over a period of time. But learn how to use these different things. And parts of the quail, the little bones, that's good for you. You don't eat the bones directly, but you can make bone broth, okay? You learn about this stuff, and you're going to see like, oh, wow, there's a lot of uses. And that's the thing, man. It's very rewarding, I think, when you're learning these new skills, you have new education, and you're passing this down to other people. It's a very rewarding experience. And again, I think the homesteading pursuit is founded on that principle, like the can-do, like problem solving, reusing, self-generation, all these sorts of things. And these little quail, man, I'm telling you, they're a great starter point, to launch point if you've never done anything before. Plant a garden, raise some quail, easy stuff. Okay, we talked about housing. That's actually a big issue, so I did want to go over that a bit. Food and nutrition. So feeding and nutrition. So quail, chickens, I'm going to talk about the difference. Chickens will feed once, or if they're free ranging, they just kind of scatter. They're eating all day, and they're moving. Okay, so they're moving about, and they're pecking all day if you have yard chickens that just eat, but you may still be feeding them. Back in the old days, they didn't even do that. They just let the chickens roam, and they scavenged, and they produced eggs. But anyway, not going tangent. Chickens will feed once a day. They eat their allotted amount, and they go about their chicken business. The quail, we keep fed continually. Why? So chickens will overeat, and they'll become fat. They'll get fat deposits all over them, and you'll have fatty chickens. It's quite common if you look around. You'll see it often enough. Quail, they don't do that. Okay, they're going to eat until they're satiated, until they've had enough. They're a different animal. They're very close to their wilder relatives, and they're ground birds. And their behavior is not like the chickens. So the quail is going to eat and then stop eating and take a break and go walk off somewhere. He's not going to just keep eating until he explodes like a chicken. So you want to keep feed constantly, or keep the feed available at all times for the quail. If you do not, there could be issues, particularly when they're young, in their early growth stage. So the quail are growing very, very rapidly. We talked about their high metabolism. They're growing very rapidly from their hatch date till their adult date, until they're 8, 10 weeks, they're full grown. But at their hatch date, in those first few weeks, they're doubling in size, I think, for the first 2 weeks, and they need access to the food. A few things will happen if you do not provide adequate nutrition to these quails. Obviously, they're going to be stunted. They're not going to grow to their full size, and that's going to be extrapolated into the future. Now you got small quail. Well, I don't want to breed my small quail. Well, why are my quail small? It's because I didn't feed them properly when they were teeny. Backyard always says, well, hello, Susan. Is that Susan? Hi, thanks for coming in. It's just me tonight, no Angela. Yeah, so we keep them well-fed, especially in their youth stage, to ensure their growth. Very important. The other thing that can happen, because these quail are very quick and they're very adaptive, if you don't feed them properly when they're little and they're not growing properly, they may have like an epigenetic development where they're going to evolve really for their offspring to also be small. Okay, so now the offspring are small because you didn't feed the first line of birds. So we don't want that. We want to make sure they're nice and well fed. And if for some reason you're not feeding them, separate them out. If you're breeding, separate them out, because you don't want to breed your bad birds. We do a lot of talk about breeding. We have a breeding video. We have a hatching video. I'm going to get into all that because we'll be here for 6 weeks. Okay, so food's important. I just wanted to press upon you those early stages if you're getting into these little critters. They need a high protein diet, okay? They're building lots of body, lots of meat in their head, right? So we feed them a 30% mix. I guess you say game bird feed, it's commonly called. A 30% protein mix. You can get that from a big box farmer store, or we get ours from a mill, a local mill. Whatever works for you. The mills are usually going to be cheaper, and ours is about 50% lower than commercial from the big box stores, and especially when you're buying in bulk. And what I recommend, if you guys are doing a community thing, especially if you have neighbors or friends who are going in with quail, or any animal for that matter, and you're not, if you're normal people and you communicate, okay, you're not going to get a big fight about it, go in and bulk buy the foods so you can save on the cost. Well, I need 3 bags of food and it costs me $50, and you need 3 bags of food that costs $50. But if we buy 6 bags at once, they're only $35. So we're saving a little money. So we work together or something like this. So look into, if you're working with friends or family, something along this line, working with a feed mill to save some money on their food. All right, so we're feeding 30% game bird feed during their growth stage till about 8 weeks, right? They're getting up to their full size, and they grow very rapidly. Now, at about 8 weeks, they're going to start laying. So I'm switching their food out at 7, 8 weeks. I'm going to start mixing in the regular layer feed. And by 10 weeks, they're going to be on strict layer feed. Because they're going to need the calcium, developing their egg-laying muscles, and they're developing eggs. So they're going to need calcium, insufficient calcium. You're going to get shell-less eggs without shells or brittle shells, and they break real easy. Not good. And, you keep your eyes open about that. That is possible. And it's easy to remedy, obviously. You're just going to be adding calcium into the diet. Make sure they have enough of that in their layer mix, which it should be if the guy mixing it is doing it proper. Anything else important about feed nutrition? Well, yes, actually. Hydration. Make sure these critters are always hydrated as well. I mentioned the water issue, clean water. Any bird, you want to keep them with clean water. And the other issue with feed, with quail, if there is no feed, let's say they run out. You're going to work, you're busy, you didn't have time to fill up their little trough, and all you hear out there is click, 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 click. There's no food. Ooh, that, they can get aggressive with each other at that point, or irritable. And you may see some aggressive bird behavior when they're out of food. So just make sure the little dudes have food at all times to avoid that problem. Not a big deal. But I mentioned I'm going to go into health and disease management. Health and disease. So everybody talking. Oh, we had a comment. My big head was pointed down. What was this here? Is 6 to 7 weeks too early to start layer feed mixing? Yeah, we usually don't do it till about 8 weeks. We start mixing in, gradually mixing in with their protein, their high protein feed. We start mixing 50-50 with the layer mix. There's resources online. I don't want to give you very specific, but generally that's what we do. We never had a problem with that, and they have grown to their healthy size. So we are also having, if there's new people in here, we do a breeding program. We don't just hatch eggs. So I always tell people it's easy to hatch eggs or reproduce quail or any animal, but breeding is different because when you're running a breeding program, you have a goal and you're strict about the outcome. You're strict about the variables. All right, you're watching, weighing, measuring, separating these animals. You're being very careful to have the desirable traits. We're not running a lab, this is not a laboratory facility, but we're trying to be pretty strict with the breeding. You go to a university, yeah, they're running a lab. You have the resources and all the kids are having fun doing their science experiments with the breeding. But even if you're home breeders, just hatching is fun. If you've never done it before, yeah, just hatch animals and watch them hatch. It's a magnificent experience. It's very rewarding. It's very cool. And you're replenishing your stock. And even with those, you can breed them into the quality that you want later down the line. But it's easier to start out with a healthy breeding program. But with the breeding program, we're very strict. We're measuring everybody. We do this at regular intervals. Angela does all that, honestly. She's here. I could take the glory, but I won't. She's not here right now. But with your breeding program, you want to have a goal. And the goal, at least with the coturnix that we raise, is consistent high egg output and optimal growth. And when I say optimal growth, I mean production of meat. Okay, because these are wonderful meat birds, and our goal for the people we work with is utilizing these animals as food production birds, food production animals, both eggs and meat, and being able to reproduce them. So it's a self-sustaining, self-reinforcing feedback. You're reproducing birds, you're reproducing eggs and meat, and now you're hatching. And again, we have tons of resource. We have our spiral breeding discussion, so you don't wind up inbreeding your birds if you do decide to do that. Okay, ooh, this is important. I love talking about this one. I'm sweating to death because so when do you, sorry, Susan's asking me. So when do you do process in and dispatch? Okay, good question. That is a good question. So what she's talking about, processing, dispatching, is taking our excess birds and turning them into sandwiches or any other delightful food item that we like to eat that's made of quail. So we do our dispatching for different reasons. One, aging out, right? We're replacing hens. We're replacing males who are no longer high production. Sorry, birds. It's part of the job. At least you got to be birds for a while. So once they're aging out, we may do a mass culling or replacement. And the other is during a breeding session where, we're trying to breed new replacement hens. So we want a whole bunch of hens, but when you have a whole bunch of hens, we have a whole bunch of males. And so when we have a whole bunch of males, they're not really doing much besides making a lot of noise. So they go into the food program, which is actually part of the whole breeding program that we have, is to, we want that. We want to have the extra males because we do process them. And we don't wait till they're 10 weeks. We usually do them at 7 or 8, usually 8 weeks. And again, for new people, from age 0 to 8 weeks, they're growing very fast. But those last 2 weeks, that exponential kind of curve starts slowing down, and they're still gaining weight, but they're not gaining it so significantly. So what's happening is it's a return of investment question. Do I want to put all the time, because you're putting effort into this, and the food costs into raising the birds for that, that little bit of extra meat that they're gaining? And for us, the answer is no. We're just going to dispatch them. However, If you're raising a small number of birds, 10 or 12, sure. I mean, if I was just raising 10 or 12, I would let them go for the full 10 weeks because I don't have that many. I want to stretch them out as much as I can. But we'll have like 50, 70, or 100 of these things. I start the food switch between 6 and 7 weeks and dispatch between 7 and 8. Okay, awesome. Yeah, like 7 or 8. And like it's about the same here. We'll start doing that. We do well, strictly like around 8, I think. We really have been doing 8-week dispatching. Egg production. That's what I was about to yap about. I like egg production. Egg production is the important part. And that's why people get the quail, is for the egg production. So the quail, their egg production is great. The quail do not take up a ton of space. You don't need the large runs like you do with chickens. They're much less expensive to start raising for food. I mean, yeah, for their eggs. You don't need to buy a run. You don't need a large space. You don't need all that grass. They're raising a hutch. You need a hutch, a decent hutch, some feed, and a water system, like very minimal stuff, really, and the wherewithal and determination to take care of the animals, and that's about it. You don't need $1 million to start up like we do with a chicken, especially in today's lunatic economy where a bag of rice is $100,000. People are starting to want to learn how to do self-sufficient food production. I'm thrilled about that, to be honest with you. The food at the grocery store is putting everybody in a grave before they're 30 years old. It's horrible for you. It's all processed garbage. And when people start learning about food, that's the other thing. You're gaining knowledge. You're learning what food actually is. Okay? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm used to opening up a bag. And, thank God, people are becoming more savvy and understanding the ultra-processed foods are the things that are keeping them chronically ill. So they're learning. And, raising these quail, I'm always passionate about people learning, because learning is a pathway to, again, satisfaction with life and intimate understanding of different subjects. Oh, hey, Kelly, you're not late. This isn't work. Hi, thanks for stopping in. No Angela tonight. She abandoned me. So yeah, learning about the nutrition and quality of food, that again becomes self-reinforcing. She's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that this has this, 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 and this. And then, oh my God, I didn't realize that these things I was eating before were doing this, this, and this. And you start learning and learning. I'm really, food science is fascinating. Our metabolisms and the way we break down food and utilize it for energy, and how the body facilitates its use. It's fascinating. It's exceptionally complex. So depending on time of year, dispatching and the beginning of egg laying coincide as well. Well, yeah, that's sometimes the case. So when we dispatch, again, yeah, like we're replacing, we have a series of hutches and we're replacing the old egg layers. So we have to grow out the new egg layers first so they're mature, which doesn't take long, 8, 10 weeks, couple months. So we're growing out the new guys, and then we're rotating them out, and off they go to freezer land. It's not at a particular time of year that we're planning to do this, a regular schedule. It's just, from what our records are telling us, like, oh, these guys are reaching this age limit and we should start breeding, prior to their age time, so we can start the replacement process, which is, it's not like it's time to replace them, let's start breeding. It's, we're going to be replacing them, 3 months from now. Let's plan on the hatch, because we've got to collect the eggs, hatch them, and all that, etc., etc. And then, unfortunately, the old girls and guys are, yes, processed and turned into magnificent meals. I cook a lot, and I like to cook, and I make good food, so I like cooking with the quail. They're tasty. I make them a million different ways. Egg production. Okay, things about egg production. So my quail stopped laying eggs. We get this question all the time. My quail aren't laying. What's going on? And there's nothing wrong with that. People are learning. And I like this question because it's a simple question, and usually it's a simple fix. Why aren't quail laying? There's usually only a few reasons, okay? Predators, stressors. Taking animals out of one cage, moving them to another, that's a stressor. It gives them a little, they're going to shut down perhaps for a while. Predators coming around and spooking the animals. they get that stress. They're going to shut down. They're not going to be laying eggs. That's a very common issue for them if you have predators lurking around all the time. And the other biggest one, especially for new chicken people, is lack of light. Not enough light, okay? The birds, once it becomes dark months, they're not going to be needing to lay eggs anymore. And the way I explain this to make it intuitive is during the winter months, there's no green, there's no food, there's not a lot of bugs. There's no reason to have offspring that are going to starve to death. So animals aren't laying their offspring during the famine time. They're going to wait till spring when the light comes back out. So we like to trick them, and the way we trick them is by turning on an artificial light. We have little LED strips, and when the seasons start to change and the light starts to subside, we'll turn them on so they're getting at least 14 hours, I guess, of daylight, 14 to 16 of light, both daylight and the artificial light. We put them on timers, and they go off early in the morning before the sun comes up, and after the sun goes down, right before that time, they'll switch on again to extend it towards the end. Okay, so it's not really a real long nighttime or a real long early morning time. It's some in the morning and some at night, to a total of 14. And they continue to lay, and they'll lay in the freezing, they'll lay in the hot. They're extremely hardy birds, and they adapt very well. So yeah, egg production is mainly hampered by those issues. And again, if you're not feeding them or they're not getting water. So make sure they get their food and water. But magnificent animals for their egg production. I eat their eggs all the time. They're extremely healthy. I have, my heart is like that of an ox. I go to the doctor. I'm like, hey, I eat pounds of eggs a day. Oh, really? I think that was a crock. I don't know. I don't think the eggs are killing anybody. It's got to be something else. I eat a ton of eggs. I've never had a problem. What did Susan say? Sorry, I have my iPad down here to read because I'm using my iPhone up here, and the comments fade real quick. I don't think that you understood my question. All is good though. The information you provided was awesome. So depending on the time of year, dispatching at the beginning of egg laying coincide well? Oh, gosh. I don't read very well. Everything matches up well. Maybe I'm misunderstanding again. You're welcome to type it again, Susan, if I'm misunderstanding. But anything else extremely important? I really wanted to get through that stuff, so I didn't want to do a super long video because my lovely assistant wife, Angela, is not here, and I'm dying. I got to take a drink. I've been talking for 40 minutes straight. As much as it may seem, I don't really enjoy blabbering nonstop. Okay, Quail 101ing. Ooh, this is important stuff. Medical issues. I forgot to mention these. I mentioned them a little bit. The reason the cage is ventilated. So the ventilation, what we're preventing is respiratory issues. Okay, we're getting, as I was stating earlier, the quail, they respirate a lot. They're producing a lot of moisture. You know what germs love to live in? Moist and warm. You know what quail are? They're moist and warm. So we want air flowing in there because without it, it's a magnificent breeding ground for disease. And they will get sick and they'll all croak out if it's not ventilated because you're going to make it a perfect environment, an incubator for germs. So we have the ventilation. As long as the air is flowing through there, things aren't sticking and drying out and creating a perfect environment for the development of pathogens. We've never had sicknesses with these quail. They've never had pathogens. The chickens, they're on the ground, so they're getting the local organisms. Coccidiosis is common. Everybody gets that. It's present in the earth basically everywhere. So the chickens are getting that. The quail in their hutch raised up from the ground, they're not in contact with these things. And that's why we always recommend, people ask, can I keep them with chickens? You can do whatever you want, but I wouldn't. And here's why. They're going to be more susceptible to illness that the chickens are hardy to, that the quail are not hardy to. So yeah, we definitely recommend keep them separated. I know people who do not, and they thrive and they're doing fine. But I wouldn't ride a car without a seatbelt, if you know what I mean. That's a safer issue. So quail behavior, once they're sick, you're going to notice their lethargy. Maybe they seem like they're wheezing, their eyes, their affect they'll look sick. You'll be able to tell, check on the animals. Don't just feed and water them, but do an inspection once in a while. Look at them, observe their behavior, check their eyes especially, see if they're swelling up or just watering, whatever's going on. And that'll give you an indication if something's going on. Like I said, usually you're not going to have a problem if the thing is well ventilated. Parasites issues. There's their parasites. Like anything else, you want to keep the house clean. Clean it out, keep the trays, don't let them get clogged up. If you can, wash them down, even spray them down. We'll spray ours down with a bleachy solution or rotating out and let it dry out and clean the thing out. So disinfecting will keep the parasites at bay, especially removing the poopy trays. Make sure that's staying out and clean. And inside of the cage, you don't want them rolling around in that. Clean that out as well. I mean, they can get dirty, but anything else, you have to keep up with them. And that's part of this whole, Farmer Joe Homestead guy thing. It's work, He's not going to the McDonald's. But the rewards are many times greater, I think, than the effort put in to receive them. But that's how it is with most things in life, I think. Injuries. Cool. I like talking about injuries. So are there injuries in quail? Quail, people like to say they die just for fun. And sometimes it seems like that. I forgot to mention this about the hutches. So the injuries with the quail, they may break their neck when they jump. They get spooked. What do you call it? Raccoon comes by and they jump up spooked. If they're hitting a hard surface, they break the little quail necks sometimes. And you may see they're injured and they're deceased from that because of that abrupt stop. Okay, so when we're building our hutches, I like to have the ceiling of their cage to be usually the hardware cloth. I mean, it's not on there real tight. So instead of hitting a hardwood surface, if they jump like that, which they will, they hit a surface that has give, that hardware cloth, where it's not real tight like a piece of wood, but it's looser, that metal mesh fabric, to where it'll bounce up with them, so they're not getting an injury. And we really don't see many injuries with the quail. They're usually quite fine. The injuries we do see are maybe pecking, if they're getting aggressive with each other. If a male's aggressive, we'll take the male out. Let him chill out. Okay, take him out, stick him out for a few hours, and he'll come in and try to reestablish pecking order. He's no longer dominant. He doesn't know where he is, and the aggression may subside. It could be an issue with just bad quail genes, they like to say. However, I have not mapped the quail genome to the precise location of the bad quail gene, so I couldn't say precisely if that's the case. But it's commonly attributed to just an aggressive animal, and it might be the genetic issue. But usually it's some environmental cause that's precipitating the aggression. Lack of food, cramped up spaces, some other predator or stressor is wigging them out. So keep an eye out for it. And if there's injuries, birds can injure themselves. They may get caught in something, let's say. All right, your cage has a tight corner, quail comes in there, and you come in, oh my Lord, and they look like hideous, like ripped up. These birds are like, you ever see the Wolverine who gets stabbed and comes back to life? They're like that. They're ripped up, but they heal magnificently. But you got to take care of them, remove them from the cage, disinfect, keep them in a little miniature quail hospital and let them heal. And they'll heal really rather quickly and fully. So we've had several times over the years where that's happened, where we'll see a quail and they have some injury. Maybe they got stuck on something, somebody pecked them really bad, or even a predator may have tried to reach in. Although I don't even think we've ever had a predator do that. It's usually just quails. Or quails are injuring themselves. So they're not very susceptible to injury, but they can get injured. And if they do get injured, however, if you treat them properly, many times they will, they're not going to succumb to the injury. They'll thrive. They'll come back. Okay, especially with exposed, where the blood is showing and it's exposed. Disinfect it. You don't want an infection starting in there. And we just treat them with a topical ointment and antibiotic. And that's always been sufficient to keep the quail healthy, safe, and happy. Okay, so I think that will do it for that portion. I just want to now segue into, and I don't want to go too long because it's been a while, maximizing food production. The whole reason I'm doing this video. The quail are easy animals to learn, start with. They're cheap, okay? They're inexpensive to start with compared to chickens. Like, we have chickens, we like our chickens. And I always say if I had one critter to choose for the apocalypse, I'm choosing the quail. They're small, they don't take up a lot of space, and they produce a ton of really tasty eggs. I like the eggs better than chicken eggs, but that's just personal opinion. The animals, if you're planning properly, they will be huge food producers of eggs and meat. And I love eggs. Eggs are exceptional sources of complete, easily digested, and bioavailable protein, which is very important. Very, very important component of our diet and for our health and well-being, and it's good quality protein. Anyway, if you're planning properly for your food program, you can get a magnificent, really, whatever your limit is, amount of food from your quail. But you want to plan it. Like, how much do I want to take care of? Do I need 400 quail? Probably not if it's just a family. Maybe 20, 30, 50 quail. Sounds like a lot, right? 50 quail, like, because if you think of chicken, 50 chickens is a lot of chickens. But 50 quail is really not a lot. Again, what is that? 3, 6, into their footprint of their cage. 50 by 3. What is that? 14 square feet, whatever that is. So you have 15 square feet. Is that correct? Yeah, 15, 16 square feet for your 50 quail. Okay. And you're producing 50 eggs a day. That's a lot of eggs. You probably don't even need that, right? So proper planning for whatever your food goal is, know what that is before you get started. Talk to people, write to us. We're actual humans, and we don't have a million people that we have to answer all the time. We get people call or send us a message about their quail questions or what their goals are, and I like answering them. I'm a weirdo, and I like to talk on the phone because I hate the text messages, but whatever. You can send a message, and yeah, you can definitely accomplish that. And I think it's great. One of the things, too, before I split out of here, I always love to encourage families to get started with the quail, especially if you don't have any food critters and you don't really have space for chickens, because they're really wonderful for the kids. Let me take a water. Dying of thirst. They're really great for the kids because they're self-contained animals. It's easy to monitor the children because you're watching them interact with the birds at their cage. They're not going to scare the little ones, 3, 4-year-old kids, the big chickens. When you're a little kid, tiny kid, and a chicken comes up to you, it can be scary. And I don't know if you're like me. If you're like me, you came from a place where a chicken attacked you as a kid, and somehow it's seared in everybody's memory of the chicken that attacked you when you're like 4 years old. Anyway, you don't have that with the quail. So they're not going to be apprehensive to go back. There's not that scare factor. And it's a very rewarding experience for the kids. I want to put together like something for the families on, and a supplement for the kids to help them stay on point with raising their own animals. Anyway, so that's something to think about. But I guess that'll do it, guys. I hope this hour-long monologue wasn't too overbearing and it answered some questions. I did want to do a live. I wasn't here last week. I was up in Maine doing something, but we're back. I'm back anyway, and hopefully Angela will be with me next week when we discuss some new topic. I actually want to do a topic. We do these Quail 101 things like Intro to Quail every month and a half to get back to that because people have those questions. But I appreciate everybody coming in. I really do. Hope to see you in the future. Oh, we just got Cornish cross chickens to the last 2 or 3 people in here. And I put a video up today Angela and I made of our little Cornish cross. They're the big meat birds. They 8 weeks old. They're ready to butcher. They're chickens. They get about 8, 9, or 10 pounds. They get pretty big. We had them before. And we have them again. And that's that. Yeah, if you want to see that, go ahead and check it out. Otherwise, I guess that'll do it for tonight, friends. As usual, it's been a pleasure. Sorry it was just me. But next week, I'm sure that lovely wife of mine will be joining me here in Dinosaur Land. Wishing everyone a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Oh, yeah, man. You too, Susan. Thank you very much. Everybody be well, be safe, and appreciate you coming in. I will see you.